Welcome to What Do You Want to Be When You Grow Up Wednesday. And today I am interviewing a longtime friend of mine, actually. So I'm really excited to be interviewing Courtney. She is a recreation therapist, and we're going to find out all about what that is. So welcome, Courtney.
Thanks.
Can you tell us a little bit about your vision to start?
It's because I have albinism, and because it's congenital, I'll say that I'm one of those bad people that don't know a lot about it. But my field of vision, I have a full field of vision, but it's 20/200. So like when I go to McDonald's, I can't read the menus, I can't read street signs, but I see everything in color. I just don't see great detail.
Okay. So tell us about your job. What's a recreation therapist, and what specifically do you do?
Oh, it can be, recreation therapy is nice because it can be a huge range of things. Be working in the community, it can be working in long-term care, or it can be like my job, which is working in a hospital. I work at Vancouver General, and I work on the tuberculosis isolation unit. So it's people that are recovering from TB, but usually when they're treated, they're not allowed to leave the unit. And that typically takes 9 to 12 weeks. But for some people, it takes longer, and it can be 6 months. We've had a couple people stay for a full year. The downside of our unit is we have no outdoor space. And because TB is a disease that you share by breathing, they can't go off the unit. So it's my job to find leisure and recreation activities for them to do. But it's not just about having fun, it's about putting purpose into it. So trying to help them develop new skills or get better at something or learn something new, and then help them be a better person and improve their quality of life.
So you're exactly the person we need right now to help us through this crisis.
Yeah, and that's funny because I worked with the other recreation therapist at VGH, and I also had a recreation therapy student, and we actually created a toolkit. So I'll email it to you, and if you want to share it with your youth.
Yeah.
And it's a bunch of resources that are all online or they're through apps. So there's things about how to cope with stress, so meditation, how to do journaling, how to stay active. There's some really good fitness apps, games that are online, whole ton of stuff. So yeah, it's all about, right now it's all about coping and, keeping your mood up and staying connected with people.
I'm totally going off script here, but is it dangerous for you to go on and off the ward then? Are you at risk for catching TB?
No, because what they say is TB is highly infectious but hard to catch. So when I go onto the unit, I wear, everybody will have heard about this now probably, but the N95 respirator. Mm-hmm. So I wear that every day. Like that's not a new thing for me. And it's also like once somebody's been on medication, they typically say for 2 weeks that they're really not that infectious. So in all the time that VGH has had a TB unit, no staff member has ever gotten sick. So you just don't go into their rooms without a mask and you're all good.
So family can come and visit them?
Yes.
Okay, cool. That's good. Because that's a long time to be isolated with
that
no
is
connection.
A long time. But a lot of the people that we get are either immigrants, and so their family's not from Canada, or they're coming from poverty, or they're homeless. So a lot of them don't have that social connection with other people. So that's why my job's even more important, because I'm the person that, they get to know, and I can help them do things and sort of stay engaged and feel like they're socially connected.
What attracted you to this? Well, I guess I'm curious what attracted you to the field, but then specifically kind of the hospital setting.
Okay, so getting into recreation therapy, I honestly didn't even know it existed. So what happened is that I was in a sport program and I was looking at going back to university. I already had a degree from SFU, but I had funding in place that was going to cover a second degree. And I was like, okay, that's crazy to turn down free education.
Yes.
But I didn't know what I wanted to do. And I actually thought that I would like to do occupational therapy. And I was talking to one of the other coordinators of the program, and she's like, why would you do that? You should go into recreation therapy. You're already doing it. And I was like, what? I didn't even know that was a thing. So then I researched it, and I was like, oh yeah, she's right. This would totally be what I would like to do, just because I spent so many years as an athlete that I already like sport. And recreation therapy is so much more than just sport, because it includes like art and music and drama. But for me, it was something that I already had a really good connection with. And when I was growing up, because I was the only visually impaired person in my community, it was really hard because I had no one else who sort of got what it was like. And I had really great parents, but they also didn't have any supports either. So I did a lot of things like cross-country skiing without a guide, and I got lost a lot. So sport became a really important thing for me because it gave me a lot of confidence. And so I wanted to turn around and sort of share that with other people. So that's why recreation therapy is such a good fit for me, is because I feel like I've been there, done that, and I get the value of it.
So tell us about the education required to be a rec therapist.
You need to have a degree. The only place you can do it in BC right now is through Douglas College. So it's a 4-year program, but you can also do a 2-year program. So it's a therapeutic recreation diploma. The difference between the two is that if you have a bachelor's degree like I do, you can be the one that actually assesses people to say, okay, this person needs to improve their social skills, and this is how we're going to do it. Whereas if you only do the diploma, you are the one that sort of goes, okay, you want me to improve their social skills and you want me to put them into this type of program. Okay, I'll run that program. So I guess I like being bossy. So
yeah, me too.
It's better for me to have done the bachelor's than the diploma. So
what sort of training, or was there training when you started this job specifically, and what did that look like?
So there's not actually training on site. They expect that when you come in as a recreation therapist that you already know what you're doing. So the only training I got was that I had an hour with the person who had been in my position before I was. And basically that was just hey, in this closet, you're going to find the art supplies. And over here is where we keep the chart packs and that sort of information. So you sort of just get dropped in and you're like, good to go. I did have someone on the unit give me a unit orientation, but basically from there, you're expected to figure it out on your own.
So not even like, this is Bill and he really enjoys doing these activities, and this is John and he, like, nothing like that?
No, because so the person that was in the position before me, she had gone back actually to Nova Scotia. And so the position she left in July and I didn't get hired until October. Okay. So there literally was nobody there. So it actually was the rec therapist before the rec therapist that I replaced that gave me the orientation.
Wow. So how was that for you? That must have been a little bit like jumping into the frying pan.
For sure. I'm lucky that I had a really good manager. She's outstanding. So she's very understanding and just makes it easy. Like, she doesn't put pressure on you. And she also doesn't micromanage. So she lets me figure things out on my own. I had done my internship, which is when you do your degree at Douglas College, your last semester is you basically go and are job shadowing someone who is working as a recreation therapist. So I did mine at Sunny Hill Health Center for Children, which is like a hospital setting, but for children. So I basically had that experience and I just sort of transferred those skills over to working at VGH. So it's slightly different, but in the same way, very similar.
What kind of accommodations, if any, do you require to do your job?
So formally, I don't have any accommodations. Informally, I do a lot of color coding. So my clients, depending on, like, I have each room number is color coded so I can find things faster. I make sure that the print on my computer is larger. We have these little labels that you put on people's charts, or whenever I do a document for someone, I have to put their patient label on that piece of paper to make sure that it doesn't get lost. So if it ever fell out of their report, like their binder, that they would know exactly where it goes. And you can print, like, the legal version is the small print one, but I always print a large print one because that works better.
Right.
So informally, I do a lot of accommodations on my own, but formally, I don't have anything in place.
And they've been cool with you doing those extra things? They're not like, some places are pretty rigid about forms and those kinds of things.
I haven't had anybody correct me yet. So I sort of run with that theory that I'm not doing what I'm expected. I'm just presenting it in a slightly different format. So for example, the large print labels, they don't have all the information that the small print ones do. So I'll print off a large print one and then I put the small print one right below it. So all you can see is the person's last name in big print, because that's all I need to know. I don't need to know their birthday and their, provincial health number. I just need to know their last name and then be like, okay, that goes over here.
Right. Is there a lot of paperwork and filing and stuff like that in your job?
Yes.
Mm.
So right now, the process is that somebody gets admitted to the TB unit. The doctors will decide whether or not they want me to see that person. If they say yes, then I go do what's called a chart review. So whenever somebody gets admitted to the hospital, they have a binder and it's called their chart. And in that chart is all the documentation that has to do with that admission. And sometimes there's also history in there. So if someone was admitted a year ago, or they have a mental health challenge, or social work has been following them, there'll be documentation of all of that there. So it's my job to basically go through the chart and decide which stuff I need to know, that's going to help me make better decisions for them. So I often want to know things like, where did they grow up? Is there any indication that they were active in sports or the arts, or do they really like to read? Because sometimes that's mentioned, especially by social work. I also need to know, they have any mental health conditions. What about other medical conditions? So for example, if they have an allergy to peanuts, I know that if I'm going to bring them into a cooking program, I better not feed them peanut butter.
Right.
So I do that part. So that's all right now on hard copy paper. Vancouver General is going to go to electronic charting starting sometime next year, which I can't wait for because it'll all be on my computer. And I've already asked to check to make sure that the software is going to be able, like I can make the font bigger or smaller. So that'll make it easier. Once I do the chart review, I then go sit with the person and I interview them. And then I take that information and I have to write it out on an assessment sheet. And then that sheet gets put into their chart and then it follows them. And then every time I meet with that person, I'm supposed to do what are called progress notes. So I have to write in their chart, I met with John and, he talked about liking to do fishing and he really would like to learn how to knit a baseball cap or something like that.
Are there personality traits or special skills you think are important for this position?
Oh, for sure. One, you have to be a people person. You really do have to like people. You really do have to like wanting to get to know people's stories. You have to be creative because every person comes in with unique needs and different interests, and you have to be able to figure out what a good fit would be for them. You have to be really flexible because in a hospital setting, you might have the best plan, and then you go get the person. They're like, oh, they took them to X-ray. Or they're in the middle of a program and they're like, oh, we got to take them for this test, or the doctor's here, or, this person needs to see them. So you have to be really flexible.
Okay. So if somebody wanted to learn how to knit, is it your job to teach them how to knit, or is it your job to find them someone to teach them?
It's my job to teach them how to knit.
Okay.
So I say with recreation therapy, you don't have to be an expert, but it does help that you know the fundamentals of a lot of different things. And at the very least, you know how to research where to find them. So for example, I'll spend time, somebody did want to learn how to knit, and I know how to knit, except this person had had a brain injury. So they didn't have the hand function to knit in the traditional way. So I taught them how to do loom knitting, which I'd never done before.
Right.
So I just spent the time to find a really good YouTube video that was super clear and really easy to understand. And I think in some ways that's where my vision loss is an asset, because I'm better at picking videos that are really easy to follow, because if I can follow it, someone with full sight can follow it.
Awesome.
So you just have to be open to learning things.
What do you like most about your job?
I like the people. I like the challenge of matching people to their, what their needs are, to helping ways to get them to be a better version of themselves. My job in particular, I also like that I can shift my hours as needed. I like the people that I work with. And I don't know why, but I've always wanted to work in a hospital setting. So I like that fast-paced environment and having to relate to, a physiotherapist or an occupational therapist or the physician.
Cool. And what do you like least?
All the administration.
Yeah.
And in a hospital, I say it's a fast-paced environment, and that's true, unless you want to make changes to the system, and then it takes forever. So I got a TV donated, and the whole idea was that we could put it up and then we could get it connected to the internet and then be able to watch YouTube videos for like yoga or education or whatever. That whole process took me 6 months.
Wow.
So that's the most frustrating part of my job.
Yeah. What kind of pay can somebody expect to make as a recreation therapist?
So recreation therapy is really hard because it's not regulated like a physiotherapist or an occupational therapist. So it really does range. If you're working as a recreation therapist for a health authority, the pay starts at about $30 an hour and you would top out at about $40 an hour. If you're not working for a health authority, sometimes the pay is equivalent, but a lot of the times it's less. And so people will be working for like $20 to $30 an hour.
Okay. We talked about accommodations, but have there been any other vision related challenges in the job?
I think the hardest one for me is if I'm having to teach someone a new skill that I'm not 100% familiar with. I don't want to be super obvious that I don't have full vision. So it means that I spend more time before I meet with that client to like really go through the video to make sure I know what it is, so that even if I can't see the video in that moment, I still know what I'm supposed to be doing. Or if I'm setting up an app, I know like, oh, you got to click on here and then you got to enter your email address here. So I think it means that I put more time in behind the scenes than another rec therapist might.
Yeah. What advice would you have for someone with a visual impairment who's interested in pursuing this career?
Try as many different leisure activities as you possibly can. Even if you don't think you're going to like them, it's still worth trying, because at some point you're going to have a client be like, oh, I really want to learn how to knit. And you'll be like, in your mind, you'll be going, oh my gosh, I hate knitting. But at least if you have the fundamental skills, you'll be able to help get them going. So just try as many different things as possible. Try volunteering. You can volunteer a lot of the times with long-term care, which that's only one example of recreation therapy, but there you can see what it's like to be running like a bingo program or an arts program. And you'll be able to see like, yes, I do like helping people, and or no, you don't. Having said that, I did volunteer in long-term care. It wasn't for me. I found it too slow. But just, I mean, there's other organizations like Power to Be that you can volunteer with. I think Open Door Group takes volunteers. So it's just a matter of finding an organization that has a recreation therapy program, and then you going, hey, can I help out? And so you get an idea of whether or not it's going to be a good fit for you. And just remembering that just because you do one site doesn't mean that that means you're going to like or not like recreation therapy, because like I said, I hated long-term care, but I love being in a hospital and I love doing adaptive sports.
Okay. Looking back to your younger self, what do you wish you had known when you started exploring possible career options?
I wish I'd known that this existed.
Yes.
Because I graduated with my first degree in 2000. And I graduated my recreation therapy degree in 2017. So that's 17 years lost. And I truly do love my job. So I wish I'd found it earlier.
What was your first degree, and what was your plan with that?
My first degree, I have a major in communications and a minor in kinesiology. And I knew communications was for me because I was sitting in a first year class. And I went to SFU, so there's a little bit more flexibility in you being able to take courses from different disciplines. And people around me were going, I hate this class. This class is so boring. And I was like, oh my gosh, this is fascinating. So I stuck with communications. I did the kinesiology because of sport. And I thought, well, how am I going to combine these two very different areas? And my thought was like writing like wellness and healthcare information at a level that, you know, you have the scientist writing this high academic information and being able to like write it so that people who are the average person could understand it. And I actually didn't go anywhere with that. So
interesting. So I have to out you for being a Paralympic athlete, not only in one sport, but in two. So Courtney's been to the Paralympics in skiing, cross-country skiing, and in track and field, summer and winter. And so I'm throwing this at you, but how has that helped you, or how can like being a competitive elite athlete translate to doing well at your job?
Oh, so much. I think that sport, you get so much out of it. You know, you learn how to goal set, you learn how to organize, you learn how to plan your time, you learn how to relate with other people. I get comments all the time at work how resourceful I am because I'm getting grants or I'm getting stuff donated. And I'm like, well, as an athlete, you just have to do that anyway. So this isn't something new.
Mm-hmm.
But I think just being involved in sport gives you so many experiences, and that all of that makes you a better person. And a lot of those skills will transfer to the workplace. So I know I wouldn't be as successful I am now if I hadn't been in sport.
All right. Thank you so much, Courtney. That was very informative, very interesting. I kind of feel like if I didn't already have my career planned out, I would love recreation therapy too. I guess I'm kind of doing it in many ways.
You already are sort of doing it, so
Just
you got
don't
the
have
best
that
of both
degree.
worlds.
Yes.
And honestly, I think that Blind Beginnings was needed more than another rec therapist. So
Thank you.